Welcome back to our final Saturday Social of 2024. We are joined by Nieve and Abz. OK, Joe, the January transfer window is fast approaching. We wanted to tap into Nieve's encyclopedic football knowledge because we think some teams are going to be a little bit busier.
It's definitely going to be a busy window.
There's a lot of the managers speaking, implying that we think there'll be a bit of movement. So the whiteboard is stripped and ready. What's the plan?
Yeah, what we're going to do is going to ask Nieve to pick one player that each Premier League club should sign in January. Abz, you're going to chip in your own suggestions and you're going to critique some of Nieve's shouts as well. Let's start with Arsenal, shall we? Yeah. Who do you think they should be looking at in January?
Alphabetical order?
They're in an exciting one because it's taught that they're going to get a big signing, which is what they need. They've needed it for a while. Nico Williams has got a release clause, so I thought he could be an interesting one on that left-hand side. But then you've got the likes of Osimhen as well, Kudus, Cunha. I think it has to be that level for Arsenal.
Do you think the Saka injury will play a big factor in what they do in January?
Yeah, similar to Mohamed Salah, for example, they rely on someone like Saka so much for their attack. So I think if they need to address something, I know Mikel was talking about Raheem Sterling coming back, they have to go into the window and sign someone. And I think Nico Williams is a good profile.
Yeah, OK, let's get Nico Williams.
Stick him up. I think Arsenal fans would be delighted with that signing, by the way.
Yeah, he would be amazing, although not massive goal this season. Villa, Tyler Dibley.
Exciting player.
Yeah, really exciting player. That whole right-hand side, right back, right wing is an area I think Villa could really improve. I don't know financially, I don't know what they're allowed to spend, so I thought later down the line we'll talk about potentially a swap deal with money they could do with Southampton to make this happen, which is what
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, I think they've had Leon Bailey there for a couple of seasons. I'm not sure about. I think they paid John McGinn out there sometimes. I think a signing like Tyler Dibley.
Yeah, losing Moussa Diaby is big.
And they've signed some amazing young English talent recently.
Yeah, they have.
He reminds me of Morgan Rogers, but as a winger, which could really suit Villa.
Be interesting to see with Tyler Dibley what level he gets to, because it
so highly
burst onto the scene. He seems very exciting.
100%.
Right, we'll move on to Bournemouth. Who you gone with?
Harrison Burrows.
Okay.
Yeah, from his Peterborough days, I've kept a close eye on him. He's really talented, and he's one of those, he overlaps, he underlaps. He likes to run forward. He's got a lot of energy. So I'd like to see what Iraola could do with that. And this is on the idea that they could potentially lose somebody in the left back.
Because it's an area that they probably don't need now, but you're going with who might...
Sheffield United aren't going to lose him either, are they? I mean, in the absolute midst of a Premier League charge here, to
promotion
lose
run,
a key player who's put up 20 appearances this season is maybe going to be a bit costly as well.
Absolute wonder of a left foot.
Brentford.
Yeah, Brentford, I've gone for Morten Frendrup. Now, Brentford's fascinates me because, you know, the home-away form situation. I look more into it, and in the first 15 games of the season, at home they've scored 26, away from home 5. And then Mbeumo had 2.6 times more shots on target at home, and Visser 4.6 times more shots on target, and also about 6% more possession as well. So I watched some of the games. They invite teams on them a lot more at home with those, because they can't seem to pass the ball and get it to those 4 attackers. They can't get... And Mbeumo, Visser, Damsgaard, they're willing runners, so if you can't get it to them... So I've gone with Frendrup because his method of being a defensive midfielder, his method of getting it up the pitch is he likes to beat a man, or he likes to be the one to sprint forward, as opposed to like a range of passing.
Carrying,
so it's just a different way of getting the ball up the pitch in those games when maybe they are sitting a bit deeper. Because there's no signs that Brentford will change that, because they signed Aiga Thiago, who's got that aerial presence. So, yeah, just a way for them to get out of the block, really.
Love it.
Okay, let's get...
Yeah, you've got to say as well, Brentford's recruitment in recent years has been very good, hasn't it? So it'd be interesting to see what they do, if anything, in Jan. Let's move on to Brighton. You've gone with Carl Walker-Peters.
Southampton fire sale going on.
Yeah, I know.
Early doors.
They're done. Fans are going to love you watching this right now, by the way.
Ivan Juric is going to be delighted. New gaffer, no squad.
Sorry, Southampton. I've gone with him because when Veltman plays on that right, I do think sometimes there's a compromise on the offence, but when Lamptey plays, I often think there's a compromise on the defence. So this is a chance to maybe get a bit of both.
Ab's thoughts on Carl Walker-Peters, because he's had an interesting career, hasn't he? Obviously played for England, at Spurs, then in Southampton. Is he a player that you would think they'd want to keep hold of? Could you see a move like this happening? What's your take on that?
I could see it happening, because I think Brighton would still obviously be a step up from Southampton fans are getting absolutely destroyed here, but. Yeah, more of a complete fullback. I think Nieve is right about what you lose when you have someone like a Veltman or you have someone like a Tariq Lamptey. So I think it's an area that they need to address ever since they started playing Pascal Gross out there. And the reason they had to compensate for that right-back role with Pascal Gross. So I think Kyle Walker-Peters is a very, very...
I think it's very interesting that the role of fullbacks now, like you look at the fact that a lot of fullbacks, you know, stereotypically in the day to defend, now you've got inverted fullbacks, you've got players that can play like United that are required to play as fullbacks and wing-backs potentially with different systems. So I think that's a fair point about...
in the summer as well.
Yeah, different profile of players that sit...
Although they do have 30 to come back, don't they? So can offer play on both sides as well. So
ugly,
it's a pretty busy spot for them.
Yeah.
Chelsea.
Yep. Mads Hermansen.
OK, let's spend a bit of time on this. This is a brave shout, I think, Nieve.
Yeah, it's brave, but, I mean, we've seen now in the Premier League, we've seen his shot-stopping abilities, absolutely brilliant. And he was brought to Leicester for Maresca.
Yeah.
You know, he massively suits the way Maresca wanted to play there. I don't see why he can't.
Do you think he would be an upgrade on Robert Sanchez?
Personally, yeah, I do. And I think he's one for the future as well. But I see a lot in him. I can understand why it's brave, because it's not a huge
goalkeeper
name.
from Leicester.
But I personally think...
Most goals prevented in the Premier League this season, to be fair, 5.8.
OK, fair enough.
Interesting shout.
I think you could go for a better profile of goalkeeper, if I'm being honest. Even someone like, I know Alisson is a bit injury prone, but if you could tempt someone like Keller, for example, even other goalkeepers in
Keller
Europe...
to Chelsea.
Yeah, you could see something like that happening. Or other goalkeepers that maybe are not first choice all around Europe. What comes to mind is Lunin, for example. Players like this who... Chelsea really need a goalkeeper.
More higher profile.
A higher profile that I've seen maybe.
Is it that, or is it just that those are more glamorous names because Kelleher, because he's good, but because we've seen him in a Liverpool shirt, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like...
I think if you're going from Robert Sanchez to Hermansen, I don't think that's as much of a jump up as someone of a higher profile, for example. So I just think it's an area that needs to be addressed. I think that's the right area to address. I think there could be better names out there.
OK. Palace.
Interesting shout, this one.
Yeah, there was talk about him potentially leaving. I saw it online yesterday in The Athletic.
Well, he doesn't play. He never plays for Man City. No. But we've seen last season for Sheffield United that this is the player that can float around that attack and dance around top.
Are you surprised at that he hasn't played much? Given Man City's predicament this season, I think he's played only 2 minutes of Premier League football this season. They've had so many injuries as well. Are you surprised he hasn't had more game time? I
mean, I'm not surprised, because I just don't think Pep tends to. He doesn't really tend to, does he? To play those young academy players. And, yeah, I think Crystal Palace, they need to create more chances, score more goals, so he'd fit for them.
2 minutes of Premier League football this season.
The reason why I like
problems.
I like that shout a lot, because almost the profiles of the striker and the two forwards either side of them. We have Mateta. Sometimes they'll play Ismail Assar out there. I just think McAtee would provide such a different profile, a creative player. Someone can get you a goal out of nothing. Yeah. I think it's a really good shout.
Very technical, because I don't remember we did the shoot with Cole Palmer last season. He was talking about players in training and nutmeg king. He shouted James McAtee as being one of the best at nutmegs and technically in training. Which, when you think of the profile of player that he's played with in his career, is incredible, really. Everton.
Yes, Romain Esse.
Interesting shout.
Yeah, so I think a right winger is something that Everton need. Now, what's interesting about Everton is only Arsenal have scored more set-piece goals, but yet they're 18th in the league for corners won. So I think they should try and win some more corners, right?
Makes sense.
And you've obviously got Ndiaye on the left-hand side. For me, he's skillful, he looks to beat a man. He will win free kicks, he could win corners. And what I really like about him is you've got to work hard if you want to play for Everton. Now, Millwall have got the least amount of average possession in the Championship, like Everton had the least amount in the Premier League. And when you watch, you've got Femi Aziz on the left and Romain Esse on the right, and they balance each other out. One will join the defence. And he played centrally as well recently. I watched the game, and he really tracked back then too. So he's a hard-working player. Yeah. But everything sort of went through those two when they were on the attack. Yeah,
I covered Millwall last season, actually. He's an exciting player. I think he's still only 19 years of age as well. 4 goals, 1 assist as well. It'd be very interesting to see what he does. Thoughts on that, Abz? The one you can see happening?
I really like it. As a South London boy myself, I've actually had the pleasure of watching Roman play. I think he's brilliant. The trickery that he has.
Yeah, he's exciting talent.
What I read about him is his instincts in the box as well. That's something that you could actually see really be... I'm so happy he's getting a shout to go to a Premier League club.
Especially with Everton new ownership as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
OK, let's move on to Fulham.
Yes, Fulham, who play some unbelievable passing football. Yeah. And you could argue maybe could have some more goals to show for that. I just think a striker that could match that energy and sort of explosiveness of the wide players that Fulham have got, to bring those players really into the game more. And yeah, Andrew Amboni, I think he is one of the next big talents up front as well. So I'm urging Premier League clubs to be the team to sign him from Parma. He's unbelievable. He's strong. Like I say, he brings the players around him into the game tremendously well. He uses his left foot, his right foot with finishing, and he seems to be getting better game by game. And even though he's really strong, his footwork at times, like the way he manoeuvres around players, I'm like, oh, OK, there's a lot of raw potential here.
Might not be the last time he features on this list.
No, I was going to say, he might feature again because you've done something interesting with your list, Nieve, haven't you?
Yeah.
You won't reveal just yet as we move on to Ipswich.
Yes. Gone for Finn Azaz. And Liam Delap's massively impressed me with the fact, not just of how he's been as a striker, but he's dropped deep a lot to help create a chance.
Totally agree.
And then he eventually is the one that gets on the other side of it. But I do wonder if maybe there's too much reliance on him in that regard. So if you could put someone behind him that allows him to burst in behind, which is something pre-Ipswich that Liam Delap would do well so much. And I thought Finn Azaz, because the way he works with Latilaf at Middlesbrough, I sort of think you could sort of replicate that. And Finn Azaz is unbelievable. He's really
having a great season. I think
it's quite a stacked area for Ipswich, though, isn't it? Like that, players that want to play almost like a second striker at times, like Sammy Smodic's in there. You know, Murray Hutchinson can float centrally. Connor Chaplin can play in there as well.
Yeah, I see, but I don't necessarily think Finn Azaz would necessarily be a second striker. He's also got those physical and off-the-ball traits to sort of be a little bit deeper. So he could combine the two a bit more, so that they don't lose their solidity, but they do have another way of creating goals because they need that.
Another player like Harrison Burrows, though, that Middlesbrough are going to be desperate.
I was going to say, they're not going to want to see him. 8 goals, 9 assists this season, having a great season in the Championship.
Such a good season for Mike.
Let's move on to Leicester.
Yeah.
Who have you gone with?
Okay.
Yeah. Ardian
Serie A.
Ismaili. Yeah, he's honestly, I think, in terms of as a solid centre-back, there's really not that much. There's not many players better than him in the division. I think the only reason why he's not had a big signing over the years is on the ball. He's not maybe the best. So the reason why that would be perfect for Leicester is they just need somebody to help them shut up shop.
He's 28 years of age, isn't he? So it's interesting you're saying that he hasn't had that big move for someone of his ability, so to speak. But you think you could see him in the Premier League with Leicester? Oh
yeah, 100%. Like off the ball, he's an absolute warrior. You don't get past him. But I think top clubs are looking for a bit more all-round ability. His contract actually runs out, I believe, in the summer, and it doesn't look like he wants to renew at Empoli. So if you were Leicester, to stop him from going elsewhere, you could get a good deal with the club, maybe.
All right, let's put him up. Let's go to Liverpool.
Yes.
Suggestions for a potential title winning charge here?
I mean, this would help just with the squad, if anything, really alleviate the minutes for Andy Robertson. You could say maybe left back. You could say sort of another player for Gravenberch because he seems to play an awful lot of minutes too. It's more about just adding a bit of depth to alleviate the minutes from the players, but also think about the future as well with Kirkes, which is why maybe someone like an Anthony Robinson, who's unbelievable, you could maybe say someone like this more because you're thinking long term as well.
Yeah. Abz, where do you think Liverpool, if anywhere, do need to strengthen? If we're looking at the premise, this is one player every club must sign, what area do you think they should strengthen the most? Or don't they need to sign anyone, Jan, because they're flying high?
They obviously still... What Arne Slot's doing so far is his in-game management, seeing an issue that's going on in the pitch right now. I think the left-back is a weakness for sure. I also think that they could get a 6 in there, but obviously we just spoke about how brilliant Gravenberch, the combinations with the McAllisters and the Soboslais are doing so well. I still think they need to find a solution up top. Listen, I think Darwin Núñez, he works, he runs, he creates chaos for the opposition. And obviously they try Luis Diaz in there, so they do try and find solutions for it. If they were to improve another level, someone to finish off the amount of chances that they create, take the burden off Mo Salah, would be a forward player.
The one thing I want to say about Kirkes is, like, he joined for quite a substantial fee. I think he was close to 20 million.
Yeah.
Bournemouth are flying, trying to compete for European spots. He's on a long-term contract. I'm sure Bournemouth fans at home are screaming, there's no way we're letting him go in January. How much do you think he would cost in January, Kirkes?
Oh, yeah, no, it would be an awful lot. And they're in a position, Bournemouth, where they can do that. However, Bournemouth might also look at it and think, if the price is right, they might feel across that defence, they've got a really solid defence, so they might feel that they could get another left back and bring them into the team and profit from it.
Yeah, exactly. OK, let's move on to City then. Just before we talk about the play, do you think City will do a lot in January? Because obviously we're in this strange predicament where we're so used to seeing Man City at the top of the table that we're not used to seeing what's happening. A lot of people talking about the squad. Pep has been asked about whether he's going to strengthen. How much business do you think Man City are likely to do in January?
I honestly haven't got a clue. I really don't know. They ought to bring in a few players, but it's a complex situation at City, so I really don't know.
How many would you bring in if you were Pep?
You'd be looking to increase the squad. I mean, I'd be looking at my academy players as well, and I'd be giving them more minutes. Maybe not as many as you think, just purely because does that necessarily mean it'll improve by bringing in lots of different names? You want the quality of names.
Abz, what about you? How many do you think City need to bring in?
I think they must. I think that's the one thing that my mind goes back to. Yeah, they obviously have a lot of injuries going on. There are obviously other reasons why they are performing like this. But just due to how horrible their form is, it's the worst form in the league. It's almost relegation form within right now. I think they must, at the same time as, realising that obviously the situation is their players are injured right now, you've got to try and get some quality in there. And I think it has to be, and obviously talking about the academy right now, we don't really see Pep promote the academy unless they're in a situation. Even Foden for a couple of seasons is like, oh, why is he not getting more minutes? We have to get him into an established setup at this point in time. We spoke about McAtee earlier. I don't think that's a solution for Pep Guardiola. I think the idea that they're going to go for is to try and invest in January, and they must.
Unless you've gone with
it's
Kimmich.
like only if you can get a level of player that you can be certain of. Otherwise, you just throw
like
money.
Kimmich.
Well, yeah, and this is the thing. I'd rather go for less and have a secure quality. Kimmich, I think his leadership is unbelievable, which is something City could really do with. That back line at the moment is all over the place for City, and I think Gundogan played all those minutes throughout the season, even though physically it looks like he struggled, because City are desperate to have a leader, someone to direct the other players. So I think Kimmich almost replicates that Gundogan of authority, but with fresher legs.
OK, so giving contracts up in 2025, I think Kimmich, obviously Bayern doing well in the Bundesliga.
Okay, Man United.
Yes.
It's not a left wing back, Nieve.
No, I'd like to hear what you were mentioning about a left wing back.
Yeah, so I think Reinders is a good player, and I think we obviously Man United lack when it comes to technical and physical attributes throughout the whole squad. I just think as of right now, we could see Ruben find solutions for the right wing back situation. We saw that Amad Diallo was doing well there earlier on in Amorim's reign. I just think with Diallo out wide left wing back right now, it doesn't look comfortable. We're not seeing creativity. We're not seeing him beat a player. What I really want to see there is bringing a balance to the pitch right now. Because our issue is right now, we have wing-backs, but they're not playing like wing-backs. They're not holding the width in the final third. If you want to build when you have the ball, this 3-2-5 shape that Amorim wants to build, you have to have wing-backs that are high up the pitch. You cannot play full-backs there. You play full-backs there, you end up playing a 5-2-3 for most of the game. So the purpose of the wing-backs have to be them to be holding the width high and wide on the football pitch. And I think Reinders will definitely improve Man United, that's for sure. But I just think that is the main issue for Manchester United right now. That width on the left-hand side, that guile, that beating a player and creating chances.
My reason for going with a midfielder is I've looked at actually the things that Man United have done really well and thought I want to see more of them. Okay. And because you've got Diallo and you've got Mazraoui or Amad on the other side, and they do a good job of really stretching the play, and there's an awful lot of space that opens up in that middle. And some of the best things United have done under Amorim have been directly vertical through the middle. When Bruno drops a little bit deeper, if Ugarte goes beyond him and runs into that space from when Bruno's dragged an opposition player, he's then found some really good passes. I think against Forest they scored a goal as a consequence from it. And I think there's an awful lot of static play. There's not movement in that midfield, but every time they've shown movement, when Maguire's stepped out and driven up the pitch, there's been space to pass into, but maybe he's looked a bit uncomfortable. Yeah. But there's promise of goals with 1, 2, 3 passes by going directly through the middle. And I think with Reinders, you've got yourself a player who could really combine with Bruno, and that will lead to many more goals.
OK, let's tick him up. We've got to do the next... Let's look at the next few.
OK, so Newcastle.
What a
player.
OK, quick explanation as to why you would take him?
Yeah, it could be him. It could be they could go for someone like a Jan Bakayoko, who there's space basically for Newcastle on that right-hand side to run into or to have a creative player. It's a position that Newcastle.
OK. Instantly, Forest, you've gone with a name that we've already spoken about.
Yeah. Again, he's
Back.
a sort of striker that I think can bring other players into play. And when you've got Hudson-Odoi, Elanga, I think he'd work.
OK, so we've already spoken about him, so we can put him up. Let's move on to Southampton then, and who you think they'll bring in again.
Yes, he was unbelievable at Hull City. He seems to have lost that confidence and flair at Villa.
Is this a swap deal you're suggesting here?
I think so. It's just a chance that Villa, maybe, I don't know how much money that they'll be able to spend. It's a chance they can involve a player in that too, so that Southampton have got a potential talent.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because they bought him back in the summer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you think they bought him back in order to kind of make a profit there? Was that the idea in their brains, you think?
I don't know. I think they expected his level maybe to be a little bit higher. I think he just needs to regain confidence somewhere.
Because we haven't seen loads of him.
No. Just remember his Puskas nominated goal that we showed. Remember, was given as an own goal originally, then given back to him. What a strike. Spurs. Let's talk about Tottenham. Centre-back, you think, is the area that they need to strengthen most. Obviously, I mean, they've got no defenders at the minute.
Yeah.
And so conceding quite a few.
I've gone for Isak Hien, and the reason I've gone for him is because I think Tottenham really need a leader. They need someone to help sort of navigate through those minute-by-minute parts of a game when they just need to calm down. And he's won a Europa League. He can match the intensity of Tottenham because he's used to it with a Gasperini Atalanta, the way they just press and don't let players turn. They're on their backs constantly.
Is that a problem, though? The Gasperini is currently in the midst of a full-on Scudetto charge here. This is their best shot of winning it under Gasperini. Do they want to lose a player who has been so essential to that unit in January, midway through a season? That's when I see people like Edison being linked to Man United as well. I'm thinking, Atalanta have got money in the bank from big sales in the summer.
It's true, but you could say that about almost every player that could be signed by anybody, because if they're in form, because that's the whole reason why people want to sign them, because they're so good.
But Atalanta as well.
But Atalanta of all teams... Atalanta of all teams are a team that perhaps would be willing to let players go, because Gasperini, he can make anybody work in his system. He's brilliant at that, so they maybe could. And Italian teams are always looking to make profit on players.
OK, let's stick him up. Reminder that Busquets does join Tottenham in 2025. Don't forget, Magic Split, very talented young centre-back. Scored midweek. So another centre-back coming in, outrageous. Gustavo Hamer for West Ham.
Yes, because from what the glimpses of Paqueta and Soler playing well, I think if they had an engine with them in midfield, they could dominate games and create a lot more chances. They need more movement in midfield, West Ham. And he offers that. We've seen him do it in the Premier League as well with Sheffield United, but then also his technical ability is unbelievable.
Kudus in there as well. There's a lot of players that want to play in that attacking midfield. It's a difficult...
No, because he's deeper. He could play deeper.
Yeah, and
we've seen him do it this season.
The level of these players that they're getting, I think that
Let's move on to Wolves. We want to make sure we've got a bit of time for Wolves as the last team alphabetically.
Yeah.
Who have you gone for, Nieve?
I actually think Wolves could probably do with signing a centre-back. It was the reason why I'd said Tanaka was because I think since Neves and Moutinho have left Wolves, I've been wanting them to have sort of a replacement for that. And I think Tanaka, he's that, but also he plays on his toes, he turns quickly, he's just a really, really special player. But I think Tommy Doyle could end up being a player who's really good for them, so maybe a centre-back's more essential. OK, most possession, 1 tackle and interceptions in the Championship League since his first start. So there is confirmation of one player every club should sign in January. Nieve, once again, encyclopedic knowledge from you.
Yeah,
great
some
to get
big
that
shouts in there.
And some very big shouts. Abz, great to get your take. Abz, any changes you've made?
Do you reckon Nieve likes Serie A?
The whole league's been rinsed.
It's been brilliant. The Serie A's are not going to be happy with Nieve. All of their adverts for all of their players here. But yeah, I think this is astute signings that people might not see and might not be the big names, but this is.
Serie A will be happy because they make profit on players, and then they'll go.
There we go. Everyone's happy. There we go. Let us know what you think at home, as always.